Okay, so today we wanted to show you the new EG WaveSHAPER, which is Elliott Garage's new waveshaping synth. The synth is based on a hybrid waveshaping wavetable engine that lets you combine a wavetable oscillator with a more classic oscillator and a sub-oscillator as well. So let's take a look at these oscillators. Here on the left we have the controls for each oscillator. So on this first column we can control our wavetable oscillator. So we have our controls for volume, octave, and a detuning knob. There's also this little pitch knob with which you can control the pitch of the oscillator. And this can be useful in combination with the others to create intervals or chords or little harmonies. The second column controls our virtual analog oscillator, our more traditional one. And our third column controls the sub-oscillator. And you can control whether you want to route it directly to the output or to the effects. So for these two oscillators, you can actually select the waveform of the oscillator. So you have your classic ones as well as more experimental ones. In this central panel over here, you can actually control the shape of the wavetable oscillator. And this is really cool, as you can see. So basically we have a choice of whether we want to use curve A or curve B to be our wavetable. Or, and this is where this really becomes cool, you can morph between two different waveforms in the A-B mode. So like the other oscillators, here we can select a waveform. So we have our classic ones like a sine wave or square wave or a saw wave. And also more bizarre ones, which the synth provides you with over here. And also what's really cool is that you can actually edit these waveforms with your finger. So you can go in and draw little variations to the waveform shape. Okay, so let's take a look at the morph a sec. So we could, for example, choose a sine wave for A and perhaps edit it a little bit like this. And perhaps a more bizarre waveform for B, like this one. So now, with the morph knob, we can actually control the attack and the release with which the synth will morph between the two waveforms while creating the sound. So the synth also lets you FM your sound with these two knobs. And there's also a noise oscillator, which can be useful to add those little textures to your sound. Over here to the right, we have our filter and effects sections, which are relatively standard, but will be really interesting and really cool once we add modulation to our sound. So let's take a look at this modulation section. So up here you can see we have two LFOs and two envelopes that we can use as we please. So each one of these can be mapped to pretty much anything in the synth. So we can map it to an oscillator parameter, an effect, a filter parameter, or anything else really. For example, we could choose to map it to the morph mix parameter. And in this case, our two morph knobs will actually be bypassed. And our morphing amount will be controlled by our modulation curve. So over here with this dropdown, you can select an LFO shape. And the synth provides you with some pretty common ones like upward ramps and triangle shapes and pretty other very common modulation shapes. And just as it was for our oscillators, even here you can go in and draw or edit these shapes. So you can get really bizarre ones or tweak them just the way you like them. Then over here on the right we have our speed knob, which controls the speed of the LFO. And the synth can be controlled with this little keyboard on the bottom, which actually includes these really useful scale presets, as well as with external controllers. And if your MIDI controller supports aftertouch, for example, you can actually decide to map this to one of the parameters and use that as a modulation source.